Just a quick overview, and I'll point to one figure here, which is the right-hand side, right at the bottom, 5% acceptance rate. The process I'm going to go through, I'll try and explain what you probably should be looking at and thinking about to be part of that 5% acceptance rate. Thank you, Erin. I have a particular focus. I'll take you backstage. I'll talk you through some of the processes we go through when we receive a paper, all the way to managing the paper until it's either accepted or rejected. So I'll go through those things. But just quick insights. I'm an associate editor of 3 journals: the Journal of Small Business and Management, Journal of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and the other one, International Journal, which is an ABS 2, ABS 3, and ABS 1. Just a quick overview, and I'll point to one figure here, which is the right-hand side, right at the bottom, 5% acceptance rate. The process I'm going to go through, I'll try and explain what you probably should be looking at and thinking about to be part of that 5% acceptance rate. The fundamental elements that you've already heard from my colleagues, I'll emphasize on some of them and add the types of articles that we're interested in. It's not different from what everybody else has said. But like I said, this process is important. Say you finish your very nice and interesting article, you're sitting at home behind your desk, and then you trigger the submit button. I'm talking about Journal of Small Business Management here, which is an ABS 3. I'm not a chief editor, but I'm an associate editor. So that paper either goes to the managing editor or the chief editor. When it gets on their desk, they do what I call due diligence. And I'm sure, Irene, this is being recorded. You can take notes as we go along, because I'm going to say a lot of things here. Please be mindful at this stage. There is no two ways about the stuff I'm going to say here. A paper that goes to review or goes through to the next stage of sending it out to reviewers, getting feedback, and me as an associate editor commenting, there are fundamental elements that have got to be in that paper. Which conversation are you connecting with? I heard someone asking a question about, do we just have to follow what has been published? My answer is a straight answer. You need to follow that and show how you are adding to that conversation. So the crucial bit is what you are adding to that conversation. And I heard earlier on people talking about contribution. How are you extending that conversation? Where are you taking that conversation? And it is in our journal. Okay? If we go on our website, right now we've got hot topics that we are interested in. They are all listed in our journal. Don't have to go through them. You need to do your due diligence. Look at our website. What is the current conversation? I'll give you an example. Family business. It's a key thing that we're starting to focus on. Go on our website. It's right at the top of the list of the topics of the articles that we're interested in. Have a look at what has been published and connect with that. If you are coming from, say, from just, it's a new topic, we don't have it, it has to be good and convincing. And your chances of getting past the desk reject are very slim. Okay? In addition to the topics and the conversation in the journal, you also need to pay attention, which people overlook, the house style. Ours is an American journal. We've got our preference for a Z instead of an S, for example, how we do our intake citation, and the list of references. Pay attention and follow those things. I always say to myself, and I think Dima has explained that earlier on, if you've been rejected by Journal A and you just take the same paper as it is and it comes to our journal, we can easily pick that. Because one, you have not paid attention to our specific requirements. It is those small things at the beginning that will get your article rejected. Pay attention to how you write, and Dima was dead right. I use Dean Shepherd every time. Simple rules of writing an introduction. As an editor, the chief editor, he has his own style. But if it comes to me, so I'll put stage 3 here. The same process that the chief editor goes through, the paper comes to me, I will go through the same process. Now, for me, it's 15 minutes test. The 15 minutes test, you got to hit me between the eyes. Is the abstract interesting? Is it gripping? Does it fit into our requirements? That's very, very important. Before I say something about that, let me go a little bit backwards. For the first, when you send your paper the first time, and the paper doesn't fit into all those things that we've talked about, I think the first 10 days, so you get your feedback the first 10 days, either from the editor or from me, because I will go through the same process again, checking whether it fits in, whether it connects to a conversation. What is important in that stage, I call it this stage, you need to stalk. Yes, I'll repeat the term, you need to stalk the editors again and again. Why is that important? Because if you are sending a paper to General Small Business Management and then the editorial board, none of us has an expertise in the subject you are talking about. You are shooting yourself in the foot. So you need to check people in the board. What have they published? Because they are going to handle your work, including the editor. That bit is very important, and a lot of people tend to overlook that. So make sure you do due diligence. Check what exactly I'm working on. If something comes and sits on my desk and I don't have any expertise, and there is no one who's got expertise, your chances of going through that desk reject, they become higher and higher. So we could do, the editor sends it to me, the chief editor sends it to me in 10 days, and I go through the same process of checking those basic stuff. One of the components that we are so focused on nowadays, that's why you got that 5%. So I'll come back to that 5% acceptance rate. What exactly are you adding to the conversation that's already happening? What are you contributing? Where are you taking the conversation to? Those things have got to be clear. This is a personal thing I'm going to say here now. You may choose not to listen to it. I've heard several people and scholars saying there is a gap in the literature, there is a gap in the literature. Hear it for the first time. That's a myth. There is nothing called a gap in the literature. It limits you from emphasizing on your contribution. I'll tell you what you need to think about. When you look at the literature, think about what's the tension in the literature. Where is the divergence? Where are people diverging? What is the confusion in the literature? Focus on those areas. What is the impasse? Where are the discrepancies in the literature? Where are the limitations? That gives you the chance to build your contribution. So that's important to think about that very carefully. So yes, you've heard it for the first time, nothing called the gap. If I'm happy with the paper, you've gone past the first stage, and then I will send out for review, and I'll give the reviewers 30 days. I had the question of somebody asking about how do I become an associate editor? I'll tell you something briefly here. For the first journal I was an associate editor, the Journal of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. It's an ABS1. I used to review for that journal. I never said no to a request to review as one, and I did a good job. The letter that came to me, this was after a year and a half. The editor said, "You've been reviewing for us, you've published for us. We think you'll be a good associate editor." You know? So how do you become one? participate in that community. You are also involved in reviewing. You are also publishing in that particular journal. The other thing here on stage 4, I've seen a lot of people say, I don't have time to review. I don't have time to do this. Well, you also want your papers to be reviewed. And if you don't get a response from us in time, you send emails and say, where is my paper sitting? Are you also participating in that community? That's very important. Stage number 4, it is very difficult because if I don't get the right people to review your work, it will not go anywhere. So I think for people that are here, sign up to do reviews for journals. That's very important. The editor, the associate editor, they would have invested a lot of time looking at your profile to match your qualities with the paper that has been submitted. And if you don't respond to them, it affects the whole process. Okay, I'll move on. So I've sent it out for review and it comes back. So it comes back on my desk. And there are a number of things the reviewers would say. Major revision, minor revision. For the first 30 days, it's very rare. I don't know, my colleagues here may have come across that. It's very rare that for the first days you get a minor. If you get a minor, oh, well and good. Okay? The reviewers may also recommend reject. Okay? However, if that paper, remember the associate editor is on your side because they've decided to send that paper out. They've seen the value of the paper because it fits in all the things I explained earlier on. It hits the scope of the journal, it engages with the conversation, and you demonstrate that you're actually speaking to our readership. The other thing I didn't explain on stage 1 and stage 2, a lot of people overlook writing a letter to the editor. If you've been doing it all along, start writing a good letter from today. I often call it a love letter to the editor. You need to demonstrate that you understand the conversation that's happening. Even better, you can, the associate editors, you can actually write a name within your letter to say, someone who's got the expertise to be able to handle our paper is associate editor A. You're making it easier for the chief editor. That's important. People ignore that. Pay attention to those small bits. They're very important. Okay, so I'll come back to stage 5. It has gone out for review. It comes back to me. This process, stage number 5, it's a challenging process because lots of things happen here. You might get 2 reviewers that are in different ends. Very extreme. Accept, reject. We do get that. The editor, associate editor, would have to reconcile those, come in between, or send it out again to a third person. It could be the person in the editorial board. It could be an expert so that we can get a third opinion. So there are lots of things that happen here. I could reject it outright, but as an associate editor, I'll also read it very carefully to make sure that what I've heard from my reviewers, it's actually a fair judgment of what's in front of me. Remember, by the time you get to stage 5, your paper has potential and it's promising. I'll come back to stage 5. If I say, for example, stage 5, send it back to you and say, I'm giving you major revisions. Irene, hopefully you'll do another session on responding to comments from both the reviewers and the editor. There is an art of doing that. I think Derma did put on her slide, people just say, that's done. That's not the right way. You need to walk me through. What have you actually done? Which parts of the paper have been changed? Using a simple color, very, very important. Because once you get to stage 5, your chances are you're getting closer and closer. So why would you want to lose it because you didn't do the revisions properly? Normally, when the editor discovers that the two reviewers are in extreme ends, pay attention to the elements that the editor is saying to you. Pay attention to these elements. Address them fully. If you're not clear, go back to the associate editor and ask them the question. Is this the way I've understood it? Is this the way I'm expected to do it? Ask that question. The last bit is the exciting bit, because at this stage, you've actually gone through that rigorous process and all of that. For our journal to get to stage 5, that's 6-8 months, and it can take up to a year. So that process is back and forth. And the last one, I could say I accept the paper, but it's a conditional accept. I want you to go and do proofreading. Professional proofreading. To answer the question to people who talked about AI, do not use it. If as an editor I get a sense and you didn't declare it, on my dashboard it tells me the percentage of plagiarism. If I investigate further, don't put a seed of doubt in my head. Full stop. If I get a sense that some of the things that are being said here, they don't fit the language we expect, Journal of Small Business Management, you are putting a doubt in my head. And I tell you, half the time, I will find a fault. You don't want that. So it's important when you're given instructions, for example, go and get it proofread professionally. On our website, Taylor and Francis, we can actually give you a link. You go to specialists that actually do that. This is a fine journal. You don't want publishing in this could be a deal breaker for your job, for your promotion and all those things. Just be careful. And what I'm emphasizing on, you are dealing with me. I'm just a human being like you. Just follow some of the guidelines. If you use Grammarly, I will answer the question that was asked earlier on. If you use Grammarly, it doesn't change the whole thing. Your story remains as it is. Where I was saying don't use it is when you are constructing a paper from scratch and you're using AI. That bit don't. Because if I get a sense, if I pick it through plagiarism or something, it will be very hard to prove to me that this is original. That's one thing that we emphasize in our journal. The article has got to be original. The article has got to be contributing. So if I've got a doubt that it's not original, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So hopefully I've shedded light on stuff that happens behind the scene. And as we go through, I've fed in things you should avoid and things you should pay particular attention to and actually work on them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, Dr. Bridget. Good to see you.
Yes.
My camera is not on. Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Oh, some names I know. Oh, look at Dima.
Yes.
My boss, IJESB. Excellent. I like the way you handle that question on whether marketing papers can be published in the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Journal. Obviously, as long as it has a slant on entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship marketing is trending. The question I want to ask, and that goes for everybody here. Somebody reached out to me recently talking about guest editors serving as reviewers for their special issues. Can you let me know what your thoughts are on that? Is it what do your respective journals think about if myself and 2 other colleagues are guest editing a special issue for a journal? Is it a problem if we also serve as reviewers?
Thanks, Prof, for your question. From an ethical perspective, it's better if your guest editors managing articles that are coming to your own special issue. It's good to send them out. You are also, in a way, going to be doing reviews of those articles when they come back, because you're going to make a judgment on whether you want them to be on the special issue. So my personal view, yes, and the number, especially in our journal, we don't have a special issue, by the way, running at the moment because there's a backlog. We tend to have a backlog. And the other thing I didn't explain, our journal, we are receiving a lot of papers. I think we're almost 800. We tend to get 1.2 a year, which is just too many. So going back to your question, I think it's always advisable from an ethical point of view, papers that are coming to your special issue, get them out independent reviewers rather than you doing the reviews yourself. You're going to do it anyway when the reviews come back.
I think I agree with Alan on that one. We do the same thing. It's better to get reviewers and leave the editor to make the independent choice based on the comments from the reviewers.
Professor Amon, when you were talking, you talked about the gaps in the literature and all that. So there's someone who's asking, other than calling it a gap, what should they call it?
Okay, I'll repeat myself. I've just said it. It's either you're observing tension where there is no agreement in the literature. I'll put it in quotes. The so-called gap should be your tension, your impasse, divergence in the literature. Why am I saying so? That gives you a very good platform for you to project your contribution, therefore, to that conversation. Informal entrepreneurship, for example, as a topic, started all the way in 1973. If we are constantly saying there's still a gap, there's still a gap, there's still a gap up to today, surely there's something wrong with people that study. I studied informal entrepreneurship. The gaps that you're looking for, is that tension? Is that divergency? I think that gives you scope to then propose your contribution.
Okay. Shema, your hand is up.
Okay, thank you, Professor Amon. My question is around ECRs and your journal. Is there an opportunity for us to even have a chance? At least DIMA had said that they have, something special for ECRs and PhD students. Your journal, is there an opportunity for us to even have a chance, or you're looking for professors?
Good question, and a very hard question to answer. I'll try my best to answer that. And I'll take a step back. I'll not answer it directly. A good strategy. One of my first top articles, I worked with someone. I worked with an experienced scholar. Start at an institution. Work with people that have actually published that journal. Because one of our emphasis is the originality of the work and the quality of the writing. For us, that's important. There's no two ways about it. What I've seen a number of times, and I ask myself to say, have you looked at what the journal on the website tells you what you should do and how you could achieve that quality? That's very important to look at that. You get people that are just copying and paste stuff from a thesis is there, and then you plug them. With 5% of acceptance rate, it means the quality that's expected is very, very high. What we don't want to do, and heads off to DIMA, I'll take heads off. Because if it comes at that quality, one, you are exhausting your reviewers, and it will take longer through the review process, which you don't want. And probably it won't survive the review process. The reviewers will just kick it back. I've answered your question as a politician.